The police officer only realized something was wrong when the silence began to answer. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't a flight, it wasn't a gun pointed. It was the total absence of reaction, that kind of emptiness that instinct recognizes before the head. If you were there at that exact second, you too would have felt your stomach sink before understanding why. The body cam video you were about to see should never have been made public. It first circulated as an internal file, marked only with a date, an incident number, and a note that was far too short for what was behind it. Standard approach, atypical outcome. The kind of description that only exists when nobody wants to write what really happened. The call was simple, almost banal. Suspicious individual standing for a long time near a disused parking lot. No weapons, no chase, no history of violence. One of those calls that police officers answer dozens of times a week and forget on the same day. This one was different. Not because there was apparent danger, but because there was no apparent life. When the officer parks the patrol car, the body camera is already recording. You see the environment before any words are spoken. Dim light, dirty ground, wind blowing through empty plastic bags. The suspect is standing, leaning against a concrete wall, like someone waiting for someone. Too relaxed a posture for someone who should be nervous. Too still for someone who is alive. The policeman speaks to him once. Then again, the tone changes quickly, from protocol to warning. "Sir, can you hear me?" No response. No movement. Not a single blink. And here something important happens. The policeman takes a step back. Not out of fear of attack, but for something more primal. His brain starts screaming that this isn't right. If you think this is just another video of a strange police encounter, you're making the same mistake the policeman made in the first few seconds. The mistake of thinking that danger always announces itself. Sometimes it hides in what seems too calm, too still, too human, until it ceases to be. And that's exactly where this story truly begins. The police officer approaches slowly, narrating aloud everything he does, not to the suspect, but to the camera. This is training. When something deviates from the norm, you record it. Individual does not respond to verbal commands. The detail is that his voice no longer sounds bureaucratic. It's lower, more careful, like someone speaking too close to something they don't understand. The flashlight illuminates the face of the man leaning against the wall. Eyes open, pupils fixed, mouth slightly open, as if he were about to say something and gave up halfway through. There are no visible injuries, no blood, no sign of a struggle. The kind of scene that confuses more than it scares, because the brain looks for a logical reason and doesn't find one. The officer extends his hand and touches his shoulder, first lightly, then more firmly. "Sir." The body sways to the side, too heavy for someone who should react. At that exact moment, you see the first microsecond of true panic. It's not the panic of someone under threat, it's the panic of someone who realizes it might be too late. He takes a step back, breathes deeply, and says something that almost goes unnoticed. "Dispatch, I need a medical unit." There's no exaggerated urgency in his voice, but there's something worse. Certainty. That cold certainty that the situation is no longer under human control. If you've ever witnessed an unexpected death, you recognize that tone immediately. While waiting for a response, the police officer observes details that no one teaches in basic training. The strange rigidity in the neck, the way the chest doesn't move, the absolute silence, interrupted only by the sound of his own breathing amplified by the camera. This is where the video begins to unsettle the viewer, because time seems to slow down. Until he approaches again, now without hesitation, places 2 fingers on the side of the man's neck and does something that doesn't appear in official reports. He counts mentally. 1 second, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then comes the phrase that changes everything, said almost in a whisper, more to himself than to the camera. "I don't feel anything." The silence following that sentence is the heaviest in the entire video. There's no music, no editing, no cuts. Just a uniformed man standing before another man who, at that moment, is no longer exactly a person. He's a body, standing. And the human brain wasn't made to process that quickly. The policeman repeats the procedure. He changes the angle of his fingers, presses a little harder. He looks for a pulse in the arm. Nothing. No vibration. No response. The body remains supported by the wall, as if gravity had forgotten about it for a few minutes. If you were there, you probably would have thought the same thing he thought. This isn't possible. He steps back again, runs his hand over his face and looks around, as if to expect someone to appear and say that it's a staged scene, a bad joke, anything that would restore meaning to the scene. But the parking lot is empty. There are no witnesses, there are no explanations. Only the camera recording something that shouldn't be happening. The dispatch center responds on the radio, asking about the status of the incident. The police officer takes a second longer than usual to respond. When he speaks, he chooses words that don't compromise anyone, but also don't hide his discomfort. Individual apparently unconscious, no vital signs. The word dead doesn't come out yet. Saying it out loud would make everything definitive. It's at this point that many viewers misinterpret the situation. They think the officer should have started resuscitation maneuvers immediately, but what the camera shows is something more realistic and more disturbing. Instinct telling him that something is wrong beyond death. The body is too cold for the environment, too rigid for the estimated time, and yet still standing. The officer takes a step to the side and frames the body better with the flashlight, almost as if he needs to prove to himself that he's not seeing things. The face remains the same, no change, no collapse, and there arises the question that will haunt the rest of the incident. How long has this person been dead, and why didn't anyone notice before? When the second patrol car arrives, the scene is already too strange to ignore. Two police officers staring at the same body in silence for seconds that go on for far too long. One of them breaks protocol and asks something simple, almost childish. Did he fall at some point? The answer comes curtly. No, he was like this when I arrived. And that changes everything. The second officer tries to rationalize. He touches the arm, the wrist, then the chest. Nothing. No heartbeat. No reaction. He looks at his colleague with an expression that the camera captures for half a second. Confusion mixed with fear. Not of the dead man, of what that scene represents. Because bodies don't stay upright after the heart stops. Not like that. The flashlight reveals details that the first officer hadn't noticed. The clothes are too clean for someone who might have been ill there. There are no marks of a fall, no scratches, no sign of a struggle. The shoes are aligned firmly on the ground, as if someone had carefully positioned the body. But there are no external cameras showing another person, only him. The medical dispatch center confirms the ambulance is on its way, but asks the officers to initiate basic procedures if there's a chance of recovery. None of them move immediately. It's not negligence, it's something more honest and harder to admit. Professional instinct telling them there's nothing to reverse, that time has run out. One of the officers comments almost guiltily that the body is cold. Too cold for the time of the call. This means only two things, and neither is comfortable. Either that person died long before anyone called the police, or the body shouldn't have been in that position for so long. The body cam shakes slightly as the first officer adjusts his vest. Faster breathing, lower voice. He says something that doesn't make it into the official report, but is forever recorded on video. This doesn't look like a normal death. And when an experienced officer says that, you should listen carefully. The wait for the ambulance becomes a psychological test. Nothing happens, and precisely because of that,
everything seems wrong. Two armed police officers, trained to handle violence, feel uneasy in front of an immobile body. There is no active threat, but their brains remain on high alert, as if something were about to happen at any second. One of them hesitantly suggests laying the body on the ground to begin the procedures. The idea dies before it becomes action. No one wants to be the first to move that body. It seems superstition, but it isn't. It's the silent recognition that moving it might reveal something neither of them wants to confirm. The camera captures small human details that almost no one comments on when these videos go viral. The officer wipes the sweat from his brow, even in the cold air. He adjusts his glove 3 times. He glances at his watch without realizing it. These are clear signs of cognitive stress when the mind tries to cling to any routine to avoid panicking. The radio crackles again. Central requests an update. The officer responds with even fewer words. He doesn't want to narrate. Narrating makes it real, and at that point, reality is already too heavy. You realize his voice no longer has authority. There's anticipatory emotional exhaustion. A stronger wind blows through the parking lot, and the dead man's clothes move slightly. Not the body, only the fabric. The 2 police officers react instantly, taking a half step back, hands near their holsters. Then they look at each other, embarrassed. They know it was just the wind. The body doesn't react because it can't react. It is at this moment that the first officer says something that changes how the case will be handled internally. We need to treat this as an investigation scene, not as a rescue. This phrase is a watershed moment. It means accepting that there is no longer a life to save, only truth to discover. And the truth doesn't always come without cost. The ambulance arrives without sirens. That says a lot. The paramedics get out, their eyes already trained to recognize what no one wants to say aloud. They don't run, they walk. And when emergency professionals walk, it's because time no longer matters. One of them checks vital signs out of obligation, not hope. Pulse, pupils, chest. The other observes the body as if trying to understand an impossible equation. In a few seconds, the silent conclusion forms. One of the paramedics shakes his head slightly. There's nothing to be done. There never was. The detail that changes everything comes soon after. The paramedic asks, "Do you know how long he's been like this?" The policeman answers with the most honest truth possible. "I have no idea. He was already standing when I arrived." The paramedic's gaze changes. It's not surprise, it's concern. They try to lay the body down carefully, and then something happens that the camera records with an almost cruel coldness. The body resists, not from strength, but from rigidity. The muscles don't yield as they should. It takes the support of both police officers to put the man on the ground. There is no fall, no collapse, just a slow, heavy, unnatural movement. On the ground, the reality becomes impossible to ignore. Rigor mortis is already advanced. This doesn't match a recent death. It doesn't match someone who would have died minutes before the call. The time of death doesn't match the time of the incident. And when the times don't match, someone made a mistake, or someone lied. The paramedic declares the death right there in the parking lot, without haste, without ceremony. The camera records the time. This number will haunt the report later, because it raises a simple and devastating question. How many people passed by, looked at that man standing there, and went on with their lives without realizing he was already dead?
After the body is officially declared dead, the first police officer sits in the patrol car, taking a deep breath. He looks at the camera, as if searching for someone to share the weight of it, but no one is there. Only you, who now understands what it is to witness something that defies logic and instinct. The team begins to review the scene. No objects out of place, no sign of a struggle. The body was alone, still, standing,
as if waiting for someone to arrive, and no one knows why. The officer observes every detail, trying to find meaning. Each plastic bag swaying in the wind seems like a silent warning. There's a detail that no one mentions in the reports. The man's wristwatch still shows the exact time of death. It didn't stop because of the battery. It stopped because no one noticed the time he died. A detail too small for most, but enough to send chills down anyone's spine. The second, older officer comments quietly, "This isn't just death, it's a warning." No one asks what it is. Everyone knows that certain scenes leave deep impressions. It's not about what happened, it's about how you feel something shouldn't have happened like that, and nobody can explain it. The camera records the first police officer's movement, looking around as if the parking lot might offer some clue that nobody else saw. But the space is empty. Only the wind, plastic bags, and the feeling that the world continues, indifferent, while he has just witnessed something that will haunt any attentive gaze for the rest of their life. And it is in this silence that the story creates the question that will spread online, in forums, in comments. If he was dead and nobody noticed, how many other times has human life gone unnoticed? A simple, direct, disturbing question. And there is no easy answer, because the answer may be around the next corner, in the next parking lot, anywhere you least expect it. The body is finally removed. The police officers remain in the parking lot, still processing it every second. The wind continues, carrying leaves and trash across the ground, as if wanting to erase any trace. But the camera captured everything, every gesture, every breath, every second of absolute silence that preceded the confirmation of death. The first police officer looks at the lens, still speechless. It's not shame or guilt. It's the feeling that something very human happened there, something that no protocol teaches you to deal with. He whispers to himself, "I'll never forget." And you, on the other side of the screen, feel the same thing. A mixture of fear, shock, and fascination with what life and death can hide. Before leaving the scene, he checks again for signs of anyone or anything that could explain the impossible. Nothing. Just an empty space and a body that inexplicably remained upright long enough to confound training, logic, and human instinct. The team walks away, a last look at the parking lot, a last breath, and the feeling that remains is that the world continues, but it is changed, because you don't watch something like this and go back to seeing the ordinary in the same way. Every shadow, every still person, every heavy silence now evokes an involuntary memory. That man no longer had a beating heart. And here comes the warning that no one wants to hear but needs to hear. If you are alone at night in seemingly empty places, about to approach someone who seems merely strange, remember, danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes death is motionless, silent, and waiting for someone to notice too late. The video ends. No music, no dramatic cut, no happy ending. Just the camera capturing the human being facing the impossible. And the question that remains, hammering in the mind of those who saw it, how many moments like this have gone unnoticed while the world went on without noticing? It's disturbing, it's human, and above all, it's impossible to forget.